Randasha, Gana Gana Salakaya, Taxomali Tamina Tasmai Shi Gurave Maha. Mukam Korti Vatanam Punkam Lagayate Girim Yakriptam Pande Shikanam Dina Taranam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Mano Vishnam, Stapitami in the Bhutale, Swayam Rupa, Karamayam, Dadati Swabranti Kam, Vandiham, Sri Guru, Sri Yutu Parakamalam, Sri Gurums Vaisnavams Cha, Sri Rupam, Sagojatam, Sahagana, Raghunatam, Vitam, Tam Sajivam, Savadvaitam, Savadutam, Parijana, Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Sri Radha Krishna Paranta Hagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitams Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vancha Kapyas Rubis Cha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Vaditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gauda Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, we can start the reading now. Mother, the Bhagavad-Gita, Prabhu.
Somebody starts partway through. What you've given me starts partway through a paragraph.
Yes. Do you want to? Yes, I did. But if you want to, you can begin if you want. You can begin with the forgetful living entities or conditioned souls have forgotten their. That's on the bottom of page 24.
Maybe you studied.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you was okay. You've gone behind. You've gone a little bit above. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now I can read what you said.
Okay.
I was just confused. Okay. We must always engage our minds in reading these Vedic literatures. Just as materialists engage their mind in reading newspapers, magazines, and so many materialistic literatures, we must transfer our reading to these literatures, which are given to us by Vyasadeva. In that way, it would be possible for us to remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death. That is the only way suggested by the Lord, and He guarantees the result. There is no doubt. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yujacha mayarpita mano buddhir mam evaisyasya samsayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time continue your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Bhagavad-Gita 8.7.
He does not advise Arjuna simply to remember him and give up his occupation. No, the Lord never suggests anything impractical. In this material world, in order to maintain the body, one has to work. Human society is divided according to work into 4 divisions of social order: Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. The Brahmana class or intelligent class is working in one way, the Kshatriya or administrative class is working in another way, and the mercantile class and the laborers are all tending to their specific duties. In the human society, whether one is a laborer, merchant, administrator, or farmer, or even if one belongs to the highest class and is a literary man, a scientist, or theologian, he has to work in order to maintain his existence. The Lord therefore tells Arjuna that he not give up his occupation, but while he is engaged in his occupation, he should remember Krishna, Mam Anusmara. If he doesn't practice remembering Krishna while he's struggling for existence, then it will not be possible for him to remember Krishna at the time of death. Lord Chaitanya also advises this. He says, Kirtaniya Sadahari. One should practice chanting the names of the Lord always. The names of the Lord and the Lord are non-different. So Lord Krishna's instructions to Arjuna to remember me and Lord Chaitanya's injunction to always chant the names of Lord Krishna are the same instruction. There is no difference because Krishna and Krishna's name are non-different. In the absolute status, there is no difference between reference and referent. Therefore, we have to practice remembering the Lord always, 24 hours a day, by chanting His names and molding our life's activities in such a way that we can remember Him always.
How is this possible? The Acharya gives the following example. If a married woman is attached to another man, or if a man has an attachment for a woman other than his wife, then the attachment is to be considered very strong. One with such an attachment is always thinking of the loved one. The wife who is thinking of her lover is always thinking of meeting him, even while she is carrying out her household chores. In fact, she carries out her household work even more carefully, so her husband will not suspect her attachment. Similarly, we should always remember the Supreme Lover, Shri Krishna. And at the same time, perform material duties very nicely. A strong sense of love is required here. If we have a strong sense of love for the Supreme Lord, then we can discharge our duty at the same time remember Him. But we have to develop that sense of love. Arjuna, for the instance, was always thinking of Krishna. He was the constant companion of Krishna, and at the same time, he was a warrior. Krishna did not advise him to give up fighting and go to the forest to meditate. When Lord Krishna delineates the yoga system to Arjuna, Arjuna says that the practice of this system is not possible for him.
Okay, so I'll continue reading. Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogasyak prokta samyena madhusudana itasyaham na pashyami chanchalat vadstitam stiram. Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Bhagavad-Gita 6:33. But the Lord says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgantinantaratmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo tatamo mataha. Of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. That's from Bhagavad-Gita 6:47. So one who thinks of the Supreme Lord always is the greatest yogi, the supermost jnani, and the greatest devotee at the same time. The Lord further tells Arjuna that as a Sattva, he cannot give up his fighting. But if Arjuna fights remembering Krishna, then he will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. But one must be completely surrendered in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. We work not with our body, actually, but with our mind and intelligence. So if the intelligence and the mind are always engaged in the thought of the Supreme Lord, then naturally the senses are also engaged in His service. Superficially, at least, the activities of the senses remain the same, but the consciousness is changed. The Bhagavad-Gita teaches one how to absorb the mind and intelligence in the thought of the Lord. Such absorption will enable one to transfer himself to the kingdom of the Lord. If the mind is engaged in Krishna's service, then the senses are automatically engaged in His service. This is the art, and this is also the secret of Bhagavad-Gita, total absorption in the thought of Krishna. So, I'm going to talk about the paragraph I was assigned. What a lot of things stood out for me in all of this. There's a lot here that's packed in here, and a lot we could talk about. But I'll try to cover some of the things that resonated with me. And one of the things that I first thought about is no, the Lord, Prabhupada says, no, the Lord never suggests anything impractical. And so when we think about that description of the Lord, then we realize how intimately connected Prabhupada is with the Lord. Because we, as conditioned souls, cannot say whether we think Krishna is practical or impractical. But Prabhupada definitely says here, that he wouldn't suggest anything, for us, that wasn't practical. And he gives so many ways for us to come to him, to perform, the service to him, to offer something at least. So he's saying, we have to maintain the material body. So this thing about Krishna not suggesting anything impractical also lets us know that Krishna is a person. That he's thinking of his living entities and what will help them get back to the spiritual world. And he's thinking about the ways to bring the living entities home, just to end their suffering, And this is also confirmation of early on I think it's early on in the introduction. I don't remember right now, but I think it is when Prabhupada says that Krishna follows the psychic movement of every living entity. So that means we get his individual, undivided attention, even though we know he's doing so many other things by his expansions, his energies, but still he's giving us his undivided attention and trying to encourage us to go back home and go back to Godhead, or how to offer something, at least how to start on our way. And so I wanted to read from, let's see, what chapter is it? The options that were given, and that's in 4, and it's in verses 8 through 12. And so there's no excuse for any of the living entities to say, well, I can't do anything, because he's just saying, if you can't do this, do that. So he's saying, is this 4? I hope I have the right one. This is not the one. Does anyone know the one? Which one?
12,
Sorry. Thank you. I put the wrong number. 12, 8 to 12. Thank you. Because that one was another one I wanted to mention. 12, 8 to 12. Yes, thank you. It's under devotional service. And how to render. Just to begin stepping towards Krishna. Oh, sorry. It's okay? Okay. He's saying, first he starts with Maya eva mana adatswa, Maya buddhim nivesaya, nivasishasi Maya eva atta urdhvam na samsayaha. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Person of God, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me without a doubt. And then he just goes on to say, okay, my dear Arjuna, and he's talking to all the living entities, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of bhakti-yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So for me, this is my category. My mind is all over the place all the time, so at least I'm following regular principles and chanting, trying to reach that platform of controlling my mind to be able to really focus on the goal. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So because we're all here, we all want to attain Krishna. We're coming to hear about him and about his instructions to Arjuna, which means his instructions to all of us. And then he says, if you cannot practice the regulations of bhakti-yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. And in 11 he says, if however you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. And then finally in 12 he says, if you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation. And better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. By such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. So he's giving, the living entities, a way, to at least offer something, And also in here, he's saying, okay, Arjuna wanted to go to the forest because he didn't want to have to deal with the situation, and he was feeling a lot of sympathy and compassion for his relatives. So he was saying, oh, I'll just go to the forest. But we know that Arjuna, and Krishna tells him that he's a Sattva. He's not going to be happy. He's going to be very restless just going to the forest. So what I'd like to talk about, if we could share some of the, and they're listed in the Nectar of Devotion, some other qualities of Krishna. Because we're talking about this because we want to keep talking about Krishna's characteristics, his qualities. We want to get to really understand them and see him as a person. And think about, find one that we're attached to, and we can think about when we are chanting or we're thinking about Krishna. We want to, be able to say, well, oh, Krishna's grateful. How can Krishna be grateful to me? You know what I'm saying? But he's grateful for whatever little service that we do. Like he became indebted to Draupadi because she called out his name. Hey, Krishna. Hey, Govinda. Please, I'm helpless. Help me. Please help me. I need your help. And so he was indebted to her. So we also need to call out and say, my dear Lord, I'm in difficulty, please. I'm helpless. Can you please help me? Because, we can reach the stage where maybe we're not chanting attentively, or we're having some kind of struggle or challenge or difficulty. And Lord knows this is difficult times. So we have to call out in a helpless manner. And then Krishna hears, I think I told this before, that when Krishna was sitting with Rukmini, and Rukmini heard, saw what was going on in terms of the arena with Draupadi and all, and she asked Krishna, your devotee is in difficulty, why are you not answering? And he said, because I'm waiting for them to call on me, to actually call out my name in desperation. It said that we should call out to Krishna like a child calls out for his mother. We know, as any of us who are mothers here, we know that the different cries of the baby. You don't run to it when you just hear, you can tell the difference between the cries. When there's something like an emergency, then you run straight away because you hear in his cry that something is actually terribly wrong. So you run there. So you know the difference between the baby's cries. When he's just fussing, or when he's hungry, or has a mess, you have to clean him up. But when it's something like really desperate, you know what it is. So we have to cry out to Krishna that way, that we're so desperate to get out of here, to be with him, to learn to love him. So he became indebted to Draupadi. So through our chanting, we're calling on him. And he can't forget it. So we want to attract his attention. And in the Nectar of Devotion, it says, and it's impossible for the Lord to forget such a devotee who's calling. He won't forget. And then he's determined to attract us home. That's why he keeps coming. So many ways he's trying to make himself known to us, trying to lure us back home, to go back home to Godhead. So it's mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion how, he is, one of his qualifications is he's determined. And so, and he's protecting, he's fighting with the demons because Satyabhama wanted the Parijata tree. And he went through all difficulties to get that tree for her because she wanted the tree. And we already mentioned about saving Draupadi and then freeing Arjuna from the attacks of all his enemies, saving the Pandavas. So I would like to ask the devotees for your participation, please, to tell me what quality of Krishna that you would like to meditate on or that you are attracted to. Can anyone tell me? Yes, Mother Lagavangalata.
Krishna was so compassionate to the living entities that he was meditating on how he could serve them, and he came in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to throw out from Krishna's service.
Yes, just see how compassionate Krishna is. He came in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Okay, he said, okay, then let us do this. Let me go and give the holy name to living entities so it'll be easier for them. They don't have to do anything but just chant my names. Anybody else have another quality?
Krishna is so merciful.
So merciful. So very merciful. Can you talk about in what ways he's merciful? Just say a few things.
His mercy has shown on so many devotees. I don't remember.
Yes, he's showing so much mercy.
In Putna case, God has not seen the bad quality.
I'm sorry?
In Putna case,
Yes,
God has not seen the bad quality that she has come for.
yes,
But he remembered that she is feeding me. And God gave him mother.
yes. Now, we're trying to worship Krishna, we're trying to chant his names, even though, we may struggle, have challenges. But just see, Putana's reasoning was, I want to kill him. At first, she wanted to be his mother when she saw his form. But then when she saw that Vamana had taken everything away, then she got disturbed and she said she wanted to kill him. So just see, both of her requests were her requests, not both of them, but the fact that even though she came to kill him. So what to speak of us when we're trying to chant. But she came to kill him, but yet he gave her the role of mother. That's also mercy. Anyone else have another one?
Who chants the name, he gives him knowledge. And he gives knowledge to a devotee and also illuminates his heart with light.
Yes. Yes, he gives knowledge to the devotee. And he also gives knowledge in the form of sending us the spiritual master. And he illuminates our heart. And you have one, Prabhu?
Yeah, he becoming a driver of his own devotee.
Yes, he's a charioteer. See, Krishna is just Krishna. He's God. He doesn't have to, he is the supreme ego. He doesn't have a false ego. He can do anything. No problem. And the role of a charioteer is you drive the person, but the person who's the warrior, Arjuna for instance, has to put his foot on the charioteer to direct him which way to go. So this way Krishna is serving Krishna is serving all of us actually. He gives enough food. He's giving us light. He's serving all the living entities. He's serving all of us. But yet we're reluctant to really surrender to him. Anybody else who has a quality out of the nectar of devotion? He has 64, so we can come up with at least 15. I think there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10 or 11. Okay. Harry Bhakti?
Yeah,
nobody can resist him. I had an experience that one of my like boss, let's say, he is an atheist, and we went to Krishna Valley in Hungary, and he refused to look at the deity. The altar was open, but then he was captured by the paintings, and he couldn't resist. He just went to the painting and he was looking at it, and he said, "Oh, there must have been a lot of like real artists coming from India to make all these beautiful paintings." And I said, no, just devotees were making these paintings. And he was telling me, no, you don't know anything. It must have been like arranged that like this very, very high artist came and made these paintings. So he was completely captured by the paintings of Krishna. So he can, even an atheist heart cannot resist
the beauty of Krishna. Probably if we actually saw Krishna in person, we wouldn't be able to stay on our body. He would be so beautiful. We couldn't stand the ecstasy of seeing him actually in person. We have to be in our spiritual body. And I was thinking of another aspect of his practicality, because someone sent me a YouTube video of George Harrison coming to Vrindavan and taking darshan of the deities and chanting in Srila Prabhupada's house. Now, George Harrison did so much for Srila Prabhupada in terms of financing, giving the manor and financing the Krishna book. But he also wanted to become a devotee, and he consulted with Srila Prabhupada, and he said, should I move in the temple? Should I shave up? But Prabhupada told him, no, you're in a position, a very famous position where you can influence a lot of people. So just keep doing your work, your talent, and serve me in that way. Because taking him out of that venue, probably, George Harrison wouldn't be able to make the songs that he made about Krishna and have such a big reach out into the population about Krishna. So Prabhupada said that Krishna, that was the beginning, is very practical. So throughout the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna gives us always the assurance, that we just have to follow the process that's outlined to reach our goal, okay? So, and Srila Prabhupada also would say, because he's Krishna's representative, he would always say, as I read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I came across this so many times, in any of the Srimad Bhagavatams, that Prabhupada always said we should follow it strictly. We should follow the principles strictly. Not, whimsically. We should follow strictly and chant our rounds with attention, or at least try to. And he assures us that we'll reach the success in our practice, despite the challenges and the difficulties and the struggles we may be going through. And as aspiring devotees, we are definitely within Krishna's purview. And also we have the support of all the acharyas, our spiritual master and the acharyas. We have their support as well. We just have to call on them as well to help us. So Krishna is always saying, Mad Mana Bhava Mad Bhaktu, Mad Yajit Nam Mam Namaskuru, Mam Eva Shisi Yuktavam, Atmanam Mad Paranaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances unto me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So we have, at least I know I have, some obstacles that always come my way in terms of And mostly the struggles are with the mind. The mind can be our greatest enemy or our friend. It can be our friend or it can be our enemy. So in that last paragraph, it said we work not with our body but with our mind and intelligence. And so we know that Arjuna talks about how the mind is difficult to control. It's like trying to control the wind. And in 255, 255, the mind, the mental, 255, that the mind is makes up the mental concoctions. Yes, 255. Hope I got that right. The Supreme Person of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So a lot of the difficulties that we have has to do with the mind. There was one, let's see. So we just need to synchronize the mind with our actions. So what is our internal dialogue? What do we can externally be doing devotional service, but what's going on in our mind? What's going on internally? You can have someone who's doing pujari work, but maybe their mind's not actually on the deities. Maybe they're thinking about some problem they're dealing with or some disturbance they had, or, we're so addicted. After so many lifetimes in the material world, we're addicted to the material. So we just have to change that around. And we've been given the process by Srila Prabhupada how to deal with that. And so we should always try to bring Krishna into our mind. Let me see if there was one thing I wanted to read out of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I hope I brought the right one. This is, I wanted to mention also that in Bhagavad-Gita 2, verses 67 and 68, it talks about how to curb the senses by complete absorption. The senses should be fully engaged. So we need to turn that around and become addicted to serving Krishna and loving Krishna. Anyabhilashita sunyam jnana karmaya navitam anakulyena krishnanu silanam bhakti uttama. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. Knowledge obtained by monist philosophy and fruitive action, the devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. So we just have to understand what is it that Krishna wants from us and change our consciousness of being the enjoyer and turn it to desperately trying to make Krishna happy with our actions and our interactions with the devotees especially. We know that Krishna likes when we serve the devotees, when we have good relationships amongst us with the devotees. That pleases Krishna very much. So it's not hard to know what pleases Krishna because he tells us, serve his devotees. Even if you're a pujari on the altar and some guest comes, he wants you to get down from the altar and go greet the person because that person is also a devotee. We have so many coming, so many guests coming. And they're all devotees. Some of them just don't know it. So we can make a difference we can go and talk to the person, give them a book, or just make them feel welcome, you know, and connect with the super soul within that person's heart. I have noted here that I wanted to read 634. Let me see, why did I put that? 634. Oh, okay. It's about the mind again. No, I think it's about the mind again. Yes, it's about the mind. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Lord Sri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So we have been given by our spiritual masters, by Srila Prabhupada, the suitable practice to purify the mind. And it says in 36, for one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. So unbridled is like when you're training a horse, you have to put I think it's called a bridle. You put something to hold the horse, to direct them in this way and that way. But our mind can't even be bridled. It's unbridled. For a person who has a mind is unbridled, then self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So we are striving, all of us are striving by the appropriate means that have been given to us to try to control the mind and focus on Krishna and learn to love him. And there was something that I really also wanted to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me find it, 328, 35. I think I have the right one. Yes. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:28, 35. When the mind is thus completely freed, and thus completely freed means we're using the means that have been given to us to purify the mind. We're trying to free the mind from material attachment. When we are freed from all material contamination and detached from material objectives, it is just like the flame of a lamp. At that time, the mind is actually dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord and is experienced as one with him because it is freed from the interactive flow of the material qualities. So when we have material desires, it just keeps flowing through our mind. No. So this material attachment is what we're trying to get rid of and become attached to Krishna. We go back to the So we have to use our intelligence. He says, we work not with our body actually, but with our mind and intelligence. So if the intelligence and the mind are always engaged in the thought of the Supreme Lord, then naturally the senses are also engaged in his service. So that requires us to not only do service, but constantly think of Krishna. It's said at the end of this paragraph, total absorption in the thought of Krishna. How do we... like so many things go on, But it's said here that this is the art and this is also the secret of the Bhagavad-Gita. The Bhagavad-Gita teaches one how to absorb the mind and intelligence in the thought of the Lord. So with all the avenues that have been given us through this Krishna consciousness movement established by Srila Prabhupada, we have all facility to reach the goal. So we should always remain hopeful and enlivened and be assured of Krishna's mercy in our progressive march back home, back to Godhead. And we have senior devotees we can take shelter of. We have senior devotees if we have doubts. We have our spiritual master if they're still on the planet. We should take advantage of this association and be willing to discuss our difficulties with devotees. That's why we're in the devotee community, so we can progress. And we're all trying to reach the same goal. So with this, I'll end the class, and I thank everyone for your kind attention. And if I have made any mistakes or said something, just please let me know and give me your comments, your criticisms, whatever, your corrections and questions. And if I'm not able to answer all your questions, we have a senior devotee here who can help.
One slok is quoted by Prabhupada ji. Gita chapter 8 slok number 7. Tasmat sarvesu kalesu ma manusmar yuddhacha. Remember me always. Mayarpit manor buddhi ma esyasi essence. Thus you surrender your mind and intelligence to me, then you will surely come to me.
Yes, that's the whole subject. How to come. Anyone else? Thank you. Yes?
Yes, Sarvabhauma said in his class, was it yesterday in his class? He said that our success will only come by continued hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes, thank you for that. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the creme de creme. Yes, Prabhu?
I was reading Srila Prabhupada.
Excuse me.
Maya Sakta Mana Partha, Yoga 7.1. He gives at least 10 lectures there, maybe, in different places.
Yes.
And he said, until unless we have love for Krishna, madly attached with Krishna, we cannot think about him all the time. So we have to learn the art to become madly attached with Krishna.
Yeah.
Like this Prabhupada giving an example here also, like woman is attached with other man, but still
Yes, he gave that example in the... Yes. So, this thing about love, we have to understand the difference between spiritual love and just love that we think we understand. Because this love of Krishna is very deep and very high. And we are wanting to love Krishna, and if we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, if we read the description about Krishna, if we try to understand his character, if we listen to his pastimes and his leelas, if we try to understand a little bit about his love for us, because, and also service. Service is love. It's not, love in the material world like we know a girl loves a boy loves a girl, whatever. This love is completely based on serving and making Krishna happy. The only thought is, how can I make Krishna happy? How can I make Krishna happy? And it said that don't act in such a way that, Krishna, that you can see Krishna. Act in such a way that Krishna can see you. So if we develop this love, then we can easily call out his name when we start developing this love for Krishna from the heart, because that's our original position anyway. We just forgot because we've been wandering in this material world for eons, millions of lifetimes. So it's work to clean the heart, to open it to Krishna's love for us. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you all so very much for coming to the Gita class. Hare Krishna.